Imagine yourself on a main city street in the early 1900s, leisurely browsing the plate glass displays as your trolley pushes through the fray. The colorful shop displays that decorate the right side of the Channelside district attract window shoppers who pass by on foot or by trolley. It's nothing new. Shopkeepers in Ybor City were aware of the same tactics 100 years ago. Whether or not the Channelside shops share anything in common with the cigar city of circa 1900, the channel was a result of the city's construction. In an effort to break up the cigar laborers' unions, Martinez Ybor decided to move to Tampa Bay in 1882. As was the fashion among industrialists of the time, he set up a company town. He purchased lands east of present-day downtown in order to maintain isolated control over his workers and their factories, their houses, their goods and services. In the construction of Ybor City, land was leveled, swamps were drained, and channels were widened for port access. Before Ybor City's construction, the channel that runs along the right side of the streetcar line throughout the next 3 stops was a rural backwater. It's hard to imagine that the docks servicing the enormous ships to our right were once a quiet estuarine inlet east of the Hillsborough River. In the late 1800s, the area known as Tampa, in the present-day downtown center and on the west side of the Hillsborough River, continued to develop a parallel but separate identity to the immigrant cigar manufacturing communities in Ybor City. In 1885, a streetcar line connected the Latino and Euro-American towns for the first time. Following a path similar to the one we are riding now, the first Tampa-Ybor streetcar riders traversed the space between 2 very different cultures. Since their introduction, Tampa's streetcars have always carried people through the transitional margins of city space. In the 1920s, developers extended the streetcar lines north to the wilderness, known as Sulphur Springs, and built planned communities removed from the urban environment. In the wake of industrial decline, the middle classes of Tampa and Ybor expanded north along the same transportation link that now serves to connect the business districts of the growing northern suburbs. The new growth of the commercial center would be short-lived, altered by a new phase of transportation and urban renewal. As our streetcar leaves the commercial landscape of downtown presently, the industrial between space that we are entering is a result of the same developments that disrupted those suburbs in the years following World War II. After the streetcars were retired in the late 1940s, new highways were extended over old city routes, dividing the commercial cores and the communities in Ybor City and the northern suburbs. Contemporary plat maps of the suburbs document the marked decline in property value and commerce, as would-be Main Street shoppers sped past on elevated motorways. In many areas, the negative economic effects persist. Unfortunately, little prehistoric evidence was recovered in the construction of the first crosstown highways. Excavation at later highway extensions, like the Crosstown Expressway, visible ahead, have made important contributions to our understanding of Tampa's past archaeology and environments. Preceding the construction of the expressway, archaeological surveys at the northern end of the Ybor Channel uncovered the remains of structures built in the marine environment. The pre-industrial marshy estuary must have been an attractive and rich environment for fishers. Further east, the I-75 highway salvage program helped us understand more about the lifeways of Florida's earliest residents at the Harney Flats site, a large Paleo-Indian habitation site, occupied perhaps between 10,000 and 8,000 BC. But during the construction of earlier highways, such as those that divide Tampa's neighborhoods in the 1950s and 60s, and later urban renewal initiatives, no archaeological investigations were carried out. Much of the urban environment that we see around us now was a result of urban renewal programs in the 1970s. in the area surrounding most of Ybor, slum clearing efforts leveled much of the early 20th and late 19th century constructions of the cigar town. But when federal aid dried up, vacant lots were left empty throughout Ybor City. Historical archaeological investigations in Ybor City have since determined that in many areas, these urban renewal programs significantly disturbed the archaeological remains of the 19th century settlements, particularly in the area of the cigar workers' houses. And thus, as we enter Ybor City, much of the warehouses, furniture stores, and garages around you are new to the landscape. With the exception of the old rail tracks, little remains of the world inhabited by the cigar workers, Latin immigrant communities, Cuban revolutionaries, and entrepreneurs that have been the focus of so much of the history written about Ybor City. Histories of the later 20th century have focused on Martinez Ybor's industrial development and the unique, socially progressive atmosphere enjoyed by the Latino and European workers who populated his town. The communities in Ybor organized themselves into social clubs where they enjoyed health benefits. At work, they listened to current events and literature read by professional orators. Later, the expatriate Cuban community would serve as the springboard from where Jose Marti launched the Cuban Revolution. In the next part of our tour, we will explore how some of the archaeology in Ybor City has followed similar lines, and some new directions that may still be explored.